Call this meeting to order. Today, the Raleigh Transit Authority meeting for today, Thursday, February 9th at 3:30. We'll start with attendance, if we can start at our left.
Linda Davis.
Latanya Williams.
Nathan Spencer.
Tallulah Pay Omokaye.
Karen Renge.
Jennifer Truman.
All right, thank you for that. All right, we're going to move into approval of the minutes. It looks like only December minutes were out in the board doc, so we know the agenda says December and January, but we're going to focus on December minutes. Can we get a motion for approval?
I move for approval. I second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor of approving December 2022's minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All the ayes have it. We've approved the minutes for December. I think that there is one revision or addition, David?
That is correct. Staff, or actually I'll be reviewing that today. If you would like to place it on the agenda, one information item regarding a software purchase or a planned software purchase by Go Raleigh, or actually the transit division here within the city of Raleigh for the Go Raleigh Access Program. So we want to daylight that software purchase, its functions, and kind of where we're headed, and talk about that potentially going to the Finance and Policy Committee through implementation. That will be a long implementation, but I can certainly provide more if we want to put that on the agenda. I can certainly go last, since that is an information item, as well as it's about 10 slides within that we have available. So it shouldn't take too long, but it is a short presentation.
All right, we can put that at the end of the committee meetings, committee updates. Is that good for you, David, or you want to go?
No, that's perfect. At the end, I can adjust as the board pleases.
So we will jump into the agenda. Outside of that, it was like the first action item. Do we have one public comment, but that's not until 4. Do we have any other? Doesn't look like we have anybody here for public comment. I think the email was public comment. Yeah, this one. All right, well, let's just jump into the first staff action item. That's the Campo Mobility Management Study.
All right, yes, and we have Ms. Crystal Odom with the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization here today, and she's going to go through, I think this is kind of phase 2 of the presentation on mobility management. We had an initial presentation just explaining what that program was, and then today we're going to talk about next steps, and I think we have one simple request of the board as well. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Crystal Odom, a transportation planner with the Capital Area MPO. And as David spoke about, we are here today for the purpose of reintroducing the Mobility Management Implementation Study, explaining the framework for you and the recommendations that came out of that study, and also asking for your endorsement of the framework. So with this presentation, we're going to reintroduce what mobility management actually means. It was for the purposes of, for those who have not participated in our study presentations prior. We want to also, again, go into the recommendations that came out of this study. We also want to share the vision and the goals for that mobility management, for this mobility management program, summarizing our outreach and our engagement activities that we've completed thus far. And again, we're going to share that recommended framework for this, for the program, talk about the source of funding. Thank you. Again, the purpose of today's meeting is to reintroduce the mobility management program and also the study, and to, for those who didn't participate in our meetings prior, we want to talk a little bit about what mobility management is. We thought it was important that everybody had a collective understanding of what mobility management is and what we want this program to look like. We also want to share our vision and our goals for the program, for the region, and then also want to go over the outreach and engagement activities we've completed thus far. We'll share the timeline, the source of funding, and specific implementation steps, and then talk a little bit about the endorsement that we're hoping to get from all of the participating agencies. So again, what is mobility management? Mobility management connects people with disabilities, seniors, low-income individuals, and others with accessible, reliable transportation options. Effective mobility management requires coordination and cooperation among a host of public and private entities, providing comprehensive and affordable service. We have that in the diagram demonstrated here, the number of agencies and partners that it takes to actually have a successful mobility management program. So the process of mobility management is really to seek and to identify gaps and barriers to public transportation that prevents all of these individuals from using the existing services. So examples might include having consistent information on agency websites, particularly when there's no fixed route solutions available. An example might include establishing systems that refer clients to available resources. It's ensuring all people that answer the telephones for all the different agencies have consistent and up-to-date information. And it's convening agencies and organizations regularly to improve that coordination and advance program goals. The Mobility Coordination Committee actually does this today, but this mobility management program will actually help set the priorities for supportive programming and operational investments in our region. So why is mobility management needed here? So we know that we need more transportation services. We also know that money is limited. We also know that the demand is actually too low to sustain regular bus service in the outlying communities. Part of the issue in our region is that there are some existing services that people are not aware of, and they're just not getting to. We think part of the problem is that people just don't know what services are available. And we think part of the solution is to make certain that we're connecting people with what already exists. We think that with more coordination and outreach, that'll make a difference. So some of you may remember where the mobility management implementation study was born from. It was actually created, it came out of the findings that were in the Regional Coordinated Public Transit Human Service Transportation Plan. That plan, which is required of urbanized areas when we want to receive 5310 funding. That plan actually had 5 main strategies that included working with the ADA in the region, coordinating our policies, making certain that there was coordination between the public transit agencies and human transit service agencies. One of the strategies was also, of course, was to create an infrastructure for being able to further these goals and these recommendations. And so that's where the Mobility Coordination Committee was created. Out of that Mobility Coordination Committee, we determined that in order to bring about one of the strategies, which was to develop a mobility management program for the region and to develop a mobility management structure for the rural area, that it would be best, because of the complexities of our region, in order to, it would be best to bring in a consultant to kind of help the agencies and staff to work together and to get the best ideas for a mobility management program for our region. And so that's where the mobility management study came from. So this is the map of the existing Campo planning boundaries, and this is the recommended boundary for the regional program. This is based on the 2010 census, and it encompasses, more than Wake County, as you can see. Again, this is the Campo planning area, and this is what is recommended, where the recommended program limit begins and ends. So let's talk a little bit about the mobility management study. The actual study was had two phases. Phase one included work to confirm the existing services that were in our area. We reviewed all of the recent studies. We spoke to agency representatives, including yourselves. We also looked at other regions' mobility management programs to get an idea of what the best practices were around the country. The study included outreach to the boards as well as a couple of focus groups as well. This phase has culminated now in this framework for the study, and that's what we're presenting today, the work of phase one, and we're asking again for your support. Phase two is a detailed implementation plan with the agencies that consent to being part of the organizational regional mobility management program. It'll be more detailed and more focused. There'll be an outreach and engagement strategy in terms of how do we engage the public in this new mobility management regional program. And then there'll be a final report. Excuse me. So what is the mobility management program's recommended vision and goals? So vision for the mobility management program is for the program to grow over time. We want to deliver improved public transportation information and services, including travel training for travel throughout the region, particularly in the rural areas. We want to help riders better connect to and use public transportation services. That's the fixed route, the traditional demand response service, and also the on-demand, such as microtransit. We want to streamline the process of finding travel options in areas where fixed routes services are not available. We expect the beneficiaries of this program to include older adults, people with disabilities, and people with low incomes. It'll also help agency staff and agency advocates with more information and more coordination. Over time and through continuous improvement, more trips will be shared among the providers. There'll be accessible technology that'll improve the user's experience. The program will produce measurable benefits, and lessons will inform other future investments in transportation improvements. So the framework was developed for the mobility management program to be a 5-year process. So in the first 2 years, the focus will be on building partnerships with agency staff and other organizations, compiling information, and reaching out to individuals and organizations throughout the region. In the third and fourth year, based on the data compilation, lessons learned, and the feedback that we obtain, the program will likely be refined in order to provide more assistance to individuals, including that travel training I mentioned earlier. And that'll also be support to agencies and organizational partners. In the 5th year and beyond, we expect that through improved access to technology, there'll be more trip sharing, and there'll be more cost efficiencies will be realized. So the goals, there are 3 major key goals that helped establish the framework for this, for the implementation of this program. Through engagement, outreach, and coordination, we want to offer consistent and easily accessible information on the available transportation services. Through data collection, needs assessments, and program designs, we want to better address the concerns of people who do have mobility challenges. And through the program evaluation and refinement, we want to be able to promote and improve coordination and the use of technology among the providers. Again, this is all for a more improved experience for the user, more transportation services, and reduced operating costs. So outreach and feedback. The vision and goals were actually developed, were informed by the outreach and feedback that we had this past year. Many of you participated in our presentations last winter, where we introduced the mobility management study, and then we sought feedback on the study at a regional program. We held the TSC, the Technical Steering Committee for this study, actually held 5 meetings over the past year, which including a meeting in October, which was a workshop where the TSC endorsed, TSC, which is staff made up of all the regional participants, they endorsed the vision, the goals, and this framework. This past summer, we also, the vision and goals were also informed by 2 focus groups that we held to obtain the feedback and to refine the program as we were developing it. One was a focus group for advocates and providers, and then another focus group was for riders of the services that we use. And we used the feedback to refine the framework design, and it's summarized in the phase 1 report, a task 7 report, which is the recommended implementation framework. So the key recommendations for this mobility management program include: 1, recruit a full-time mobility manager to start in fiscal year 24, July 2023, and to serve the full region. They will be a Campo employee that will rotate their time among the participating providers. Again, this is a recommended position to be employed by Campo for the purposes of serving the entire region. They also recommended using the Mobility Coordination Committee as the Mobility Management Steering Committee, which will require the Mobility Coordination Committee to be reframed and also formalized with its procedures. And then also, one of the key recommendations was to fund the program, the Mobility Management Program, with FTA's 5310 program funds that are apportioned to the region, which is estimated to be about $120,000 to $150,000 per year, and that's a high estimate. We understand. So the implementation framework, the goals, they were the 3 goals: engagement, outreach, and collaboration, data collection, needs assessment, and program design, and then program evaluation and refinement. One of the strategies, or some of the strategies for the first goal, again, engagement, outreach, and collaboration, was the partner engagement and coordination, which is basically relationship building, developing a mobility management identity and a brand, developing publication for public materials, and describing the program, and compiling a centralized transportation, compiling centralized transportation resources, and then also having some sort of external promotion, informing the forthcoming engagement and marketing task. It should be noted that while we're asking for endorsement from the transit providers in this first phase, we are asking all agencies in the region to participate, be they transit providers or the human service agencies. We're asking the transit providers to actually submit a written endorsement. We think that that'll make for a stronger foundation for the mobility management program. But everybody, all interested stakeholders are invited to participate, and no one will be excluded. We're going to look at this regionally and make certain that we're coordinating all the services and making certain that we're communicating about the existing services. So the second goal was data collection, needs assessment, and program redesign. Strategies that we're looking at is developing the regional transportation information database so that, again, everybody knows where to collect information up to date. We can keep it up to date and make certain that we're all sharing the correct information. And as a end user, you begin to learn very quickly how to navigate the transportation services that are available. We're looking for a dedicated mobility management webpage. We're looking for rider referrals. We're looking to strategize data compilation and reporting on things like trends, clients served, contacts made, and unmet needs. Again, this is all going to continually inform us as we improve upon our transportation services and our programs. Thirdly, program evaluation and refinement. This is where the strategies include travel, training, referrals, periodic meetings with boards and other decision makers to report progress, refinement of the program based on the data and the feedback that we're reviewing. And again, remember, the Mobility Coordination Committee would have oversight of this mobility manager person, so there'll be continually a steering committee that's working with this regional person that's going from agency to agency, collecting data, sharing data, making certain that we're communicating the same information. And then also one of the strategies would be to explore technology integration and also to be an advocate for improved regional coordination. So what are the next steps and the schedule? So as noted before, we aim to roll out the program July 1st, 2023, and we need your formal commitment through a written statement that endorses the proposed framework that we're presenting today. And we do have proposed language that is attached, and I'll share that momentarily. We're seeking Campo's endorsement. We're providing information these March meetings. We're seeking their endorsement in April. We're providing information in February now, and we're seeking their endorsement in March so that we can continue into phase 2 of the work of this mobility management study. It should be noted that presently we've received an endorsement already from the town of Apex, from Johnston Community Area Transit System. We've also we're receiving endorsement from Go Triangle. We presented at Wake County's tab. We expect them to sign on any day now. We're presenting here with the City of Raleigh, the RTA. We're also presenting with HARTS, the Harnett County Area Rural Transit System, the town of Cary. We're presenting in the 21st, and CARTS, the Car Area Rural Transportation System. We're presenting in a date yet to be determined. But again, the goal is to get all the endorsements in February and present to Campo's TCC and Campo's Executive Board so that they can endorse the framework for this mobility management program, and we get permission to, collective permission to hire the mobility management, or to begin work on the mobility management program, mobility manager position, excuse me. So again, the next steps, we're continuing the work on stage 2. We expect the mobility management study to be completed by June of 2023 so that we could roll that program out in July. And this is a look at what the proposed draft language looks like. I think we have a couple of minor edits from the City of Raleigh, but basically it's the agency endorsing the recommended framework in the study, the recommendations, which includes the mobility manager position, and also agreeing to continually work with the mobility coordination committee, and to support that. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a very thorough presentation. I feel like it probably answered as many questions. Does anybody have any questions about the mobility study?
It was very thorough. It's very good. I'm really glad that we're thinking this far and looking at it this way. In terms of the mobility manager position, I'm looking at the goals, and each one of those goals could be a number of goals on their own.
Yes.
Engagement, outreach, and coordination are all external, but all very, very different. If it were easier, Andrea would be less stressed. So I'm trying to figure out how this one person is going to be able to handle this and succeed on, especially on an area that is, what are we estimating? 1.5 million people?
Well, thank you for your question. That's a great question. One of the things, and again, why we had a consultant come on board was to look at the various mobility management programs around the country. So part of phase one included a peer review and a paper, and all these are on the Campo website. By the way, the reports as each task progress. One of them is a peer review to look at other peers. You will be able to see that mobility manager programs differ greatly depending upon what region you're in. So in phase two of this study, we intend on working within the Mobility Coordination Committee and also with, quite frankly, Wake Transit, the Wake bus group, to talk about the actual job description for the mobility manager. There's a number, as we've been doing the work in the committee, the Mobility Coordination Committee, there's a number of work that, there's a work that we've already outlined that they could potentially do. We want this to be more than just coordinating with the public. We want this to be something that staff can use, this position. Again, this position is about sharing information, coordinating. So, for example, we have to update the coordinated public transit human service plan every 5 years. Hard to believe that we just updated it and created the Mobility Coordination Committee, but that is an example of work that this person could help do. It entails meeting with the human service agencies, the public transit agencies, bringing us all together and finding out what the unmet needs were and where the gaps in service. This person can also be used to help with the micro transit, to overlay all the micro transit programs that are happening within the not just Wake County, which is what the Wake Bus Transit is working on, but beyond Wake County and then the Campo region, so they can add on to what the Wake bus transit folk work on, to expand it to the Campo region. So we have our work cut out for us to set up what the job description is, but we intend on narrowing it down so this person could be successful, or this position could be successful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I was interested to note that the two focus groups you held with advocates and riders, and was that really trying to get from them identifying what, I don't know, the disconnects are now, or the weaknesses, and why people aren't using transit more from these groups?
Well, remember, the coordinated plan told us a bit of that. What we were looking for is really where how they were not receiving information from the, so even though the transit providers and the agencies are talking, but sometimes it's a delay of information. What information could we get from them? What information do they think they needed? It was really just to talk about everything in its entirety and how this mobility management program can be of a benefit, not just talking about the gaps in service and so forth now.
Yeah, I get that was just one part of it.
Yeah.
Well, one of my other questions was about the use of technology. We've been having that same conversation within the Raleigh Transit Authority, and we've also been having conversations about how can we expand our ridership and the importance of the use of technology in making riding the bus easier and having more people aware of our bus system and how to use it. And so I guess it seems to me that if technology isn't coming in till 5 years into the program, that seems a long ways away. And so that's sort of, in terms of endorsing this program, that to me seemed like an area where it just seems so far off, when actually I think the technology is going to be really critical as in the process. And technology, I mean in the broad sense, whether it, using the bus, how to find out about the bus, social media, whatever, that's something that's going to be really crucial to, and I'm wondering if that needs to happen sooner.
I can tell you that technology is going to be happening throughout these phases. This is just really going to be the focus of, it's important for us to define the program, mobility management, to communicate that. So we wanted to make certain that this one person, this one person was able to, with the support of the staff and the Mobility Coordination Committee, could actually phase in the focus. That does not mean that technology will not be discussed and that we will not be working with what's actually happening in our region and also beyond. In fact, that's actually one of the goals of the mobility that was outlined in the previous 2018 Public Transit Human Service Transportation Plan. So the Mobility Coordination Committee is working on that right now. It's actually one of the fifth goals, to work with agencies like Lyft and Uber to see what we can do with technologies. Also with the micro transit and the technologies that we're working to do with working with micro transit, we're also using or the agencies are using technology now. So it's not going to be no technology. It just won't be the focus. We're all, where they're focusing on technology.
And building on that, whether it's communication or technology, do you think that part of the goal of, since the idea is to coordinate among agencies, that we might be looking at coordination among all the transit agencies for any kind of unified approaches that might make riding the bus easier and finding out about how to ride the bus easier, letting people know about the services in an easier way? Because we do have different, we have the county agency, we have the city agencies.
That's what we're including everyone. And right now, we're just looking at the transit providers in terms of writing a written endorsement, but everyone's included, and they actually participate in the Mobility Coordination Committee. So, Town of Apex, because they have services now that are going out that way. Hearts is coming in to participate in the coordination committee. Again, they're signing this endorsement paper, and also the form, and also JCAT. So we're talking about Johnston County as well. So we are not limiting it to just transit agencies or transit providers, but everybody that
I
wants
guess my
to
question is, do you think on the table will be looking at a way to more universally, like if I want to find out about how to get around in the Campo area, maybe there's a way to unify it so that it becomes easier, and it's not like, oh, well, there's the Apex system, and then there's the Raleigh system, and there's the county system, and I realize we're talking about different types of riders and different interest groups.
Again, that's what the Mobility Coordination Committee was for. And the I'll actually let the staff to speak on that. The agencies are already working on that, but the coordination, the mobility, the MCC is also working with different agencies. We've got different people sitting at the table now. Again, the transit providers and the human service agencies, and I actually am and the administrator for the MCC, so I know the work that's being done. We have recently gotten an influx of additional staff and folk that are participating. For example, the Veterans Administration is sitting in now, so we can understand what issues. And there's funding pots everywhere that are not connected to speak to some of the things that you're alluding to. But yeah, there's an opportunity, and this is the place where we're doing it, talking about it, and also working through the recommendations that were outlined in the plan. So coming up with our next reiteration of the coordinated plan, we expect there'll be more coordination and more looking at more now that we have really worked on it the last 2 years, quite frankly.
Thank you very much.
so.
Appreciate it.
More coordination is always awesome. I would just, in terms of the endorsement, it seemed like there was some staff time dedication. Assume our staff would have to talk to the new coordinator, I assume is what that's for. And I just wanted to check in with Mr. Eatman, like, we've talked about staffing before, and so I'm just making sure you guys have been okay with that.
Certainly in phase one, most definitely. I mean, quite honestly, it'd just be an additional resource. A lot of times we connect those dots ourselves, whether that's through our access call center or whether that's through just our office in general. We certainly have the regional call center as well as the regional trip planner, which job it is to link all of these elements together. But certainly we feel, confident, and especially in this phase one. I mean, this is just a good idea. Let's inventory, which we've already done, but then beyond that, let's start connecting these dots. Just so everybody's aware, I mean, Campo, or the Capital Area MPO, and that planning area which we're talking about, covers all of Wake County, parts of Franklin, Granville, Harnett, and Johnston counties. So we are talking about an area that's, well over 1 million population as of the last census, and will continue to grow. So just wanted to make sure that everybody did understand the scope of what this is. This isn't about just linking residents of Raleigh with transportation resources within the city of Raleigh or Wake County. We're talking about a 5-county area here that this could impact.
Thank you, and thanks for your report, Crystal. It really seems, especially when you made that emphasis, David, that this is a monumental undertaking. It's really exciting, though, because we've talked in the past about the microtransit and the need for figuring out our best way, even just here in Wake County, to utilize, serve disabled and lower mobility passengers. I think that it does sound like one of the things that was interesting to me is you said that eventually what this program promises to do is to make it easier for everyone, those special needs citizens as well, to use our fixed transit. Because 5 years from now, it may be that what we're doing is coordinating with this larger area in and out. We personally are Raleigh, but we all know that we're moving toward coordinating with the other counties in the region. Mm-hmm. So I think that this really is, you've been at it for a while, but this vision is pretty exciting, and it sounds like you've got some great data, and you're moving into this next phase with a good vision for all of us. So I think it sounds great.
It is exciting. Thank you.
I want to say also thank you for all the time that you all have put into this. Like, it looks like you all have taken your time going through each step, making sure you vet each part of the process. And it is very exciting to make sure that we can get mobility to all the people that need it. I have a question about coordination or clarification, just so I'm clear. When you say HART or JAC or JCAT or things like that, are you working with other elements in the city outside of transportation, like planning or housing?
We are. They're invited. Again, this is the first year. Actually, it's the second now. Actually, how long it's been in place since 2019, but COVID hit too. So, but we've been at it working on achieving the goals, reaching the recommendations that were outlined in the original plan. But we've invited, so we've been growing. So we started with the core transportation providers to work through the recommendations that were outlined in that plan. They were very specific. Again, trying to bring a mobility. They actually wanted us to bring a mobility manager in, but we didn't think that was prudent until we actually did the research and so forth before. That was premature, we felt. So there has been a lot of legwork that staff has done, that the committee has done, but we opened it up to agencies in both planning and human service. The regional centers participate regularly in the coordination, so it's beyond transportation. So the long-winded answer is yes. We included other agencies, human service agencies as well.
Thank you. And then another question, how did, I know that this started, like you said, pre-COVID. How did COVID inform how it's looking now? Has it changed once COVID hit? Did you allow that time to actually maybe add a little more to the context of the mobility management study or the plan going forward?
Well, work continued, quite frankly, through the study. The agencies, I have to commend David and his staff and the other agency operators and also the planners, because of course the operations folk were dealing with, COVID and safety and so forth on the actual buses and so forth, shortages and staffing shortages as well. So we were able to continue working on the specific goals of the coordination committee, which was to develop the mobility coordination committee, the goals of the plan, which was to develop the coordination committee. We have subcommittee meetings that work on specifics. We updated the plan in there or added an amendment to the plan. We worked on the 5310 program and their program management plan. So we continually worked through there. So it informed it. I think we got smarter as we worked through the specific goals. We changed the schedule and the timetable. We didn't really add, but we did change a little bit, edited, amended some of the specific goals and recommendations that were in there. So,
Any other questions?
I did have a question. One, the presentation was well done. Thank you for sharing, and I'm looking forward to the impact of what this work could bring. I was thinking more about how you all are going about this, even in the design of this work, about sustainability. So I know a part of this is also, bringing together a number of different organizations. Are we also looking for them to potentially also invest beyond staff time, but also financial resources if we start seeing the outcomes that we want to see through the evaluation, but to see that this work is shared in terms of not only just having people to buy into it, but also that financial contribution to make sure that it's sustainable?
great question. Thank you. We, right now, and I did mention it in here, right now we are recommending that it's the program, the mobility management position is funded with the 5310 program funds that the Raleigh urbanized area is apportioned each year. So there's a sustainable income that comes in. We feel as if we can manage the program and also work within the apportionment that comes to the Raleigh urbanized area to achieve what we need to achieve in these first few years. So, yet to be determined.
Okay.
Add on to that? Because that makes sense, but I'm assuming that as this person does their job well, there are going to be mobility holes that are uncovered. Is there a commitment from the partners to fill those? Because I think David will tell you the paratransit system is probably the most expensive piece, single expensive piece that we've got that, and every agency has that where it's just very expensive to run it, but it's also needed. Are we going to have some support, especially region-wide where we can't share that money across counties?
The answer to your question is yes. There are other counties, one in particular, Johnston County, is looking at having their own mobility manager position to work with this position. So in answer to your question, yes, there's definitely commitment. But I just want to reiterate, this mobility management position and the program is about working within the existing services. So we're not providing, in theory, it's supposed to make the existing services and the coordination operate smoother so there wouldn't be any increasing cost and so forth. So we're hoping that will be, in fact, the case. And it looks like in every indication that it would be, that we're working with better coordination. And again, David spoke about it earlier, the call centers and the dispatch personnel actually coordinate between agencies and now in terms of helping individuals get from point A to point Z. But we do think that we can, with more coordination and more communication, that we can improve the user experience. And that's really the goal.
All right. Are there any other questions? I know what you're looking for is for us to vote on our, is that what we're, yeah, we're voting on our approval, right, of the management study. Would anybody like to make a motion?
This is LaPonde. I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor of approving the Campo Mobility Management Study, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The Campo Mobility Management Study has been approved by the Raleigh Transit Authority.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And just for disclosure, Madam Chair, that does come with an endorsement letter from the chair. So we'll make sure that we get that out to the body. Just make sure that everybody does feel good with that language. I'm not sure, I don't think it was in the agenda today, probably should have been. But so we will do that one extra step, has been approved, but we do want to make sure everybody sees that approval before we send it. If we get no comments over like a 72-hour workday period, then I'll forward it to you for your signature.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to close the meeting very shortly for public comments at 4:20. Looks like we only have one public comment that was emailed into us.
Yeah, I'll be happy to briefly address that. You have before you one public comment that was received via email. That was received today. Just looking at that, it had three key areas of interest or of concern. One was safety, one was cleanliness, and the other one was consideration for passengers. Under the safety, it appears that there may be a little confusion regarding masks. So, quite a while back now, but not too far back, we did change all of our messaging through all of our bus shelters on inside of buses, things of that nature, and also on the exterior of buses. As you board, it used to say mask required. Now that says recommended. If there's anything out there that does still say required, we'll do a scan of that and make sure that we pick that up. I'm not aware of anything myself personally, but that doesn't mean that it's not out there. So that seems to be number one on the safety side. Our messaging still is just recommended. You don't have to have a mask in order to board the bus. We just say that, hey, it's probably still a good idea, but if that's not your thing, then that's okay as well. We are still, providing PPE, throughout the system. So just wanted everybody to be aware of where we are currently. Certainly from a cleanliness standpoint, I would say that generally speaking, the last 24 to 36 months have been some of our most challenging times as far as right-of-way upkeep as well as our major transit hubs within Raleigh. So can we do a better job, at cleanliness, which this is addressing those larger facilities? I would say yes, and that is our plan, and that has already begun. I think here in a bit, you may actually get to meet Sarah Tromba, which is one of our new staff members, which is working closely with others at some work down at Go Raleigh Station currently, as well as looking at other ways that we can improve the aesthetics and overall experience of our customers. As you're also aware, we have a number of operating and contractual endeavors in front of us, and all of those present opportunities for us to improve as well. So we're looking forward to those opportunities in the not too distant future. And then finally, consideration for passengers. We'll probably have to follow back up on this one because certainly whenever there's a concern regarding kneeling or things of that nature, we do follow the queue, or we should follow the queue of the passenger for those requests. Certainly if we don't have lifts and I don't think that I've seen many lift failures like we did in the old days when we had the large mechanical lifts with the flip lifts and low floor buses. Those are pretty few and far between, but something that we'll certainly follow back up and see if there's a particular issue that we might be able to hone in on, and if nothing else, provide additional training or information as needed. So again, just wanted to let you know, we haven't had this long. We just had this, got this late morning, so we haven't had a lot of time to dig into it, but did want to provide a little bit of background on that. And so we'll follow up with this citizen, and certainly we can provide additional update to the board if needed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to just follow up on the cleanliness comment. in a recent visit of mine to Go Raleigh Station, I was really surprised at how dirty it was. It was unpleasant. There was garbage. There was like just goop on the floor, and it felt like it hadn't been swept in a long time. And I, just as a rider, I thought, this is really unpleasant. This is not going to want to make people ride the bus. So, and I did follow up with staff who did address it. And so, and I understand their challenges, but I think it's really important, especially, I mean, just for our current riders and for future riders. Thank you.
I just want to echo, I don't ride the bus every day anymore, but I ride it often enough to say that I've also seen bus drivers not kneel for people. I've seen them not even open the front door when people are standing in front of the front door. So I just want to echo that as like I've seen it myself personally. So I think we do need to look at, especially with the opportunities and retrainings that are coming up for operators to get rehired in the new contract, to really talk through what are those best practices and policies for customer service. Just to echo.
Anybody else? Well, Mr. One Neck Terrain, hopefully we won't have these issues moving forward. So that's the upside, that we have a new management company coming in where we won't, we'll be getting this cleared up. So I hope that we can communicate that to her too, that we are making the necessary adjustments in management. The hope is that we'll see something different. We won't have that problem anymore. All right, I don't think we have any more comments. All right, well, I'll call the meeting back to order at 4:26. And we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the RTA retreat.
All right, so I'll kind of dive into this one. We had met with two committees this month, and during those committees, we had talked about potential dates. One was the last week of this month, which I think is now out of reach as far as a scheduling, and then the first week of March. Madam Chair and I did have the opportunity to speak today. What we did want to do is throw out, because when we put a lot of different dates out there, it really seems like we get a big split, about a three-way split between what's popular and what's not. So we wanted to start with the Transit Authority meeting date on the 9th of March. That particular date, hopefully that 3:30 to 5 is already on your calendars. So if you could spare 12 to 3:30 that day, we'll provide you with a little lunch while we talk to you. And we can run through an agenda that we already have generally put together. We would be doing some, as you have a lunch, we would be talking about the new boards and commissions training. So we do have a presentation for you, as well as there is a new handbook for all boards and commissions with the City of Raleigh. So we'll review that. The next one is we would potentially have presentations, and these have not. So if I do have listeners from these departments and I haven't talked to you yet, don't freak out, all's well. But we will be potentially talking with housing and neighborhoods, as well as planning and development, about providing some updates on the work in both of those areas around affordable housing, certainly around our high-frequency networks within Raleigh, our high-frequency transit network, especially BRT. But also, that 15-minute headway is also a very important, service that's out there as well. If it's not BRT, that's a great level of service, and making housing affordability in those areas that you can have that frequent bus network really makes a huge difference. Not the final thing, but the next one we would talk about the annual report and the annual work plan. So really, this is a confirmation of the work that's already been done, and just thinking about what other things that might be out there, as well as staff will be doing a presentation on accomplishments for FY23 that will projected to be complete this fiscal year, as well as what the Wake Transit Plan currently has budgeted for FY24, and those comments are for that budget are out right now through the Wake Transit Plan. So we'll be, providing information on, what's in that and what we expect to happen in FY24. And then that should take us to about 4:30, where we can handle that a couple of different ways. We can advertise the general meeting at 4:30 for a short meeting for public comment, or we can do that earlier in that process and take a whatever period of break and do that as well. But that's kind of a general outline of how that afternoon may work. Madam Chair, you also had some thoughts about, public participation or how we might be able to roll some other opportunity into that if the public wanted to attend. We will be looking for a public facility to hold this that's on a nice frequency transit route. So we'll provide additional information once we're able to firm that location up. But that's, again, just a general overview of what we're thinking. And again, the 9th is already almost halfway there. So are we just trying to close the loop on that first half on the 9th?
Yeah, so I definitely think that it's an opportunity, especially as we need to get the word out about the Transit Authority. We have a lot of information to put out, plus looking for more members or for people to be aware that there are opportunities to be on the Transit Authority, inviting them, or having a portion of the retreat, especially if we're having it during the day, where people have an opportunity to come and voice their opinions, but also see how how the sausage is made a little bit, might help us get with recruitment, but also with engagement, which is one of the major things that we've been talking about. I like the idea of us possibly holding it on Thursday if people can spare the time, because it's already on our calendar, and it doesn't make us have to make room for an additional day, and maybe wind up losing some of the authority members. So I'm open on that day, but I wanted to kick it around to everyone here that we came up with 3 dates that we're thinking about. That is March the 9th, Thursday, March the 9th, Wednesday, March the 8th, and then I think the Thursday, March the, was it 16th?
16th is the, yep.
Yes, Thursday, March the 16th. And those dates will be from noon to 5. Noon to 5:30 if we do the Thursday, March 9th, because that's the same day as the Transit Authority meeting. But it also means that some of the business that we need to talk about at the retreat, we can take care of at our Transit Authority meeting if we go with the 9th.
Should we vote
Yeah, or anybody has any comments before we jump to it? Anybody has any suggestions?
or raise hand for availability or something?
All right, so let's just maybe stick it with the 9th and the 8th. How's that feel for everybody versus the 16th? Okay, so all in favor of the 9th, if you could raise your hand. All right, all opposed?
I'm sorry, I'm still scrolling
No.
through. Not opposed.
Want to let your voice be heard, one way or the other.
The 9th may be able to work, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So it seems like so far, only just making sure that Josh and Bryce are good for that day, but it sounds like the 9th is good. Do we need to take a vote on it, more formal, or are we good?
I think you're good, and we'll certainly get with the other board members and make sure that they have as much notice as possible. So that means we will make sure that we get with them tomorrow, so they have a very good, as much notice as possible to block that time. I think, though, for them, I would imagine that being that scheduled date probably does help to a certain degree.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I think your idea to have some extra time for public comment is really good, particularly because we're going to be going over the work plan and reports on like progress on the work plan and what we still have left to do. So if we could maybe, when we put the meeting announcement out, like specifically say that it would be great to have public comments about the work plan, and make sure that it's up ahead of time for people to be able to see that in the public notice. I think it would be really, I think a lot of people email us stuff at random, and it would be good to kind of get them to come at once.
I think so, too. I think it would be a good opportunity for engagement. Do you think we can get a flyer put together quickly for that? Awesome. I know you can. All right. And then also, of course, us wanting to make sure that we add to the agenda, but discussing succession planning at the retreat. So if everybody can kind of have those ideas in their mind about succession planning for the RTA. All right, is that good for the retreat?
That is good for the retreat. And speaking of which, just you brought it up, so I thought I would just mention it. The Finance and Policy Committee is looking for a chair, just to remind you. We can certainly wait till next month to get that done. That just means that we may go into that next meeting with a volunteer if we have business at that next meeting. So as long as everybody's good with that, the staff is fine with that, but I just wanted to bring that up.
As of right now, the only person on the policy, finance committee, is Ms. Linda and Josh. And I know Josh stepped down as chair because of his role. So, are you on it too? Mm-hmm. Oh, snap, okay. It's growing right before my eyes.
You put me up there.
Okay. So if we can get you all to, maybe one of you all decide who may want to step up and chair. Linda?
I'll agree to chair it.
We'll just make it interim. At least we'll call it that.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'll agree to.
The power is awesome.
Means forever.
so that's perfect. Okay, good. So then we
Watch out
have
for those interims, you know, they last.
they turn into permanents very quickly. Is that all that we have? Okay, awesome. So then we will go ahead and move on to our committee reports, and we'll start with the route committee.
I was actually not there, so I'm going to pass it to Jen,
Thank you.
if you don't mind.
We had some good information. I'm trying to pull it back up, the list of things I'm supposed to talk about. We talked about the Wake Transit Plan goals around how we compare ridership versus coverage goals as we participate in meeting the Wake Transit Plan goals as Go Raleigh. And that memo that explains how that works from the consultant is in the route committee meeting agenda. So if anyone's curious about how that comes together, you can take a look there. And then we also talked quite a bit about the bus shelter bid for the enhanced bus stops and some of our regular bus stops that are getting new shelters in the current bid. And I think Sarah has a little presentation about that. So I'll let you do that in a second. I'm just going to finish the other two things really quick so that we can roll straight after that. We just got a brief update that our ITP dev transition is going according to plan, which of course we've all heard more about. And y'all heard at last month's meeting, and we talked a little bit about retreat dates, which we've just decided. So I'll turn it back over to Sarah, because there's really cool bus shelter updates coming. We thought it was exciting enough that everyone would want to hear it, so that we asked her to present.
We love shelters.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Tromba, and I am part of David Walker's team as a construction project coordinator. And so I oversee a lot of the construction projects that are going on. And one of them, or two of them, are Set 6 and Set 7. So the history of this project, or of the subject, it is a new item, but basically this is just an informational update on the Go Raleigh passenger amenity improvements for both Set 6 and Set 7. And I'll go more in depth throughout the presentation. But just a little bit of background, Ramey Kemp Associates, they are our consultants, and they work heavily with Go Raleigh on a good number of projects with us. They work with the design, surveying, bidding, and construction management, and I will be referencing them throughout the presentation, so I just wanted to give you guys that in front, so you guys are aware, and these are just the gentlemen that we work with. And so the timeline, but both sets are or scheduled to be awarded to Brow Construction. Set 6 are our standard sites, and already a PO and executed contract have been received, and RKA or Ramey Kemp to set schedule for a pre-construction bid meeting or pre-construction meeting, which has been set up today for February 23rd, and to send a notice to proceed to Brow Construction. And the total contract price, as you see, is listed below. Set 7 are our enhanced sites. I'll go more in depth on that as well. But bids were received on January 17th. Low bid was a base bid of almost $550,000 with an add alternate, which I'll go in depth as well, for a little total of a little over $1 million. And so the Go Raleigh staff and RKA recommend an award to Brow Construction, but the next step is to submit to City Council for approval. And so I'll go more in depth on Set 6, which are our standard sites. So there are 16 total sites being installed. 10 of them are going to have shelters, one being a Tolar shelter, which is below, and
What
15 Tolar.
What is that?
That's just the manufacturer name.
Okay.
And so 15 additions to sidewalk to become ADA landing pads. And so I'll go more in depth on this. This is a site, or example of a site 235, which will have a Tolar shelter. It's 25 feet on a 30-foot landing pad. It's going to be located on South Wilmington Street Center, and this is right across from Oak City Cares and the men's shelter, so it is very high visibility from the city, as well as a high ridership. And as you can see from the plans, it is a pretty neat shelter. It does have a ramp, handrails, stairs, benches, trash cans, 25-foot shelter, and so it is pretty impressive. It has added curb and gutter, and so it's going to be pretty nice to see once it's all built out.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. This is not a bird's eye view, this is a vertical view, right?
This is a bird's eye view,
That is a site plan view.
a
correct.
site plan.
Do you have an actual view of the structure, what it looks like?
No, we do not have any architectural renderings for this site.
And this is, you said this is are these the standard or the expanded
A
shelter?
taller shelter would be something like you would see that is not our red shelters, but our standard hip roof shelter. That's a 5 by 10. This is going to be a 5 by 20 or 5 by 25?
25.
Oh, yeah, 5 by 25. So it's 2.5 of our regular shelters in length, with all of that being, we'll have space for ADA and wheelchairs as required. But so it's almost 3
It's
times
just
as
a-
large
it's
as
a
our existing
longer-
facilities.
It's a
That's
bigger
correct.
shelter, and this is going to be at 10 sites?
No, this is just one site.
With one larger one, the other sites are the typical.
This is set 6?
Yes.
So one of these size in set 6, and then she'll talk about set 7 in a moment, which set 7 is all larger sites.
But the rest of set 6, oh, I'm so sorry.
Please explain.
The rest of set 6 will be, what size?
They are the standard red
10.
shelters and black shelters that you see on the street
Gotcha.
right now.
And where are they located?
Where are they located? A good bunch of them are located in the Garner area. However, later on the presentation, I'll show a lot of where a lot of proposed shelters are being built. There's an interactive map that I can show you guys.
And are these all the new red shelters?
Not all of them, no.
We just can't get those red shelters, boy.
And
We can't install, we're placing the red shelters at a standard bus stop. This does not fall into the category of a normal bus stop because of the number of boardings. We would have to put 3 red shelters in a single spot, and that's.
okay, I'm not talking about this one special one, I'm talking about.
We are installing all the red shelters, yes.
So all of the 10 and 15 you're talking about, those will all be the red shelters? Is that? that's-
Most of them are red shelters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And so these two, which I'll go in depth as well, these two are red shelters. So the left one is Site 160 near Garner Station. It does have the red shelter, larger landing pad, additional sidewalk with a high-vis crosswalk over to the median, an additional sidewalk, and another high-vis crosswalk over to the other side of the road with additional curb and gutter. And then the one on the right, Site 230, this will have also a red shelter and brick paving. It is butt up next to a park, so there is going to be additional landscaping involved. But these are just 2 sites that are just examples of what we are going to be building within Set 6, and these are the standard sites. Now, Set 7, these are the enhanced sites. There's going to be 8 total. These are larger shelters. They have passenger info signs, which, as you can see in the photo, one is mounted in the center post inside the shelter. And they have lighting as well, and they're much larger pads. And these also have a bike rack, and will have 2 double trash cans instead of a single one that you would see on the road.
Well, that's very attractive. I really like it.
Question, so we talk about standard shelters. I've seen multiple standard shelters, and it's not consistent at every bus stop. I've seen in newer bus stops with larger landing pads, small shelters. So I've seen some where the seats cover the size of the shelter, so it's not ADA, so if somebody has a wheelchair, they are not covered. So it's more like the bench is covered versus people are being covered. So when we talk about standard shelters, I think we need to be clear exactly what we talk about, what is standard, because I don't see consistency at every bus stop.
Yeah, if we have a shelter that does not have a space for a wheelchair, that the entire shelter has a bench inside, let us know, because we can change that.
Okay.
Because those should be very rare. Now, we do have a lot of shelters in our network, and please understand that when we have development come in, staff is reviewing all the developments that come in, and under the UDO, we do get those developers to build the shelters for us, so those are at no cost to us. Under those scenarios, we just make sure that they meet our basic cross-section. So we have, the transportation department has a number of just basic plans for curb and gutter. What does a bike rack look like? What does a bollard look like? You know, all of those standard details. And so we have the same thing for a shelter. And architecturally, if they want to build that so it matches their development or whatever, we're okay with that because they're building it. But they have to meet our standard detail, and it has to meet ADA, and then we sign off on that as part of the site plan or part of the inspection process. But I just want to let you know, you will see those different types of shelters out there.
Okay.
And most of the time, if it's not our standard 5x10, that is the
black.
they're the black ones, and then our standard red shelter. If it's not those two, then very likely, almost 100% likely, it is a private development installed it.
So the one we're looking at right now, this is a new design.
Yeah, so that will be our third of our type that we would install,
Which is
a lot larger, and it is provided with electricity. It will have real-time passenger information inside. I think it will have also phone chargers in there. So it is a large upgrade because of the ridership and demand at these particular stops.
And
I mean, it's very nice.
if I remember correctly, the enhanced shelters are similar to the ones that are at Go Raleigh Station.
Yes. So moving on. So this is an example, or this is the Set 7 alternate. It's at Western Boulevard and Jones Franklin Road. So there is enough space here. As you can see, there's a pull-in, pull-out for buses, and that is big enough to store 2 buses alongside right there, and multiple agencies will be using this stop. So it is very important to, be able to have the buses here without blocking much traffic, and as well as there's, a larger sidewalk, benches, trash cans, and a few other amenities as well with the larger landing pad on this. And so you may have looked at one of the previous slides where it did have the cost of the add alternate number 1. This is that plan. And so I just wanted to provide this to you guys so you guys have a little bit of awareness of what's going on.
Yeah, that is a stop of regional significance. It is served by Go Raleigh, Go Cary, and Go Triangle.
Is that related to the new construction that's happened out there? That's why we have the on and off option?
I'm not entirely.
No, yeah, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so what's next? Set 6, as I said before, there is a pre-construction meeting now scheduled as of today on February 23rd with RKA and Brow Construction. And so the construction timeline would start in March. And so Set 7, we submit an agenda to City Council for approval on the February 21st meeting. And then, so this is what I wanted to show you guys. This is an amenity tracker. So not only do we have the information of what's coming down the pipeline, but you guys as the members of the board, as well as the general public, has access to this link. And this is just a preview of what it looks like. Once it loads up, I can show you. Okay, so if I scroll out, you can see every single one of our bus stops within the city of Raleigh, as well as nearby locations. And so if you press on this gives you guys a little bit of a legend. The red squares are the ones or the bus stops that have shelters already. The orange squares are the ones that are planned to have shelters in the future, and the black squares are current bus stops that just don't have shelters yet. And it does give you a little bit of a rundown of all the bus routes here. And then there is a little bit of extra information on every single one of these. This is a very interactive map. And so if I scrolled in and I pressed on a stop that has a shelter already, it does give you a bunch of details on that stop, as well as if you scroll down, there are pictures of what the amenities that are offered to the public here. And so everyone does have access to this. It's on a public domain. And there's multiple photos. It does give you what the area looks like, what it's nearby. And so you just give a little bit of a heads up of what you can see while you're at the stop. So this is the stop here. There's a little bit of a ramp. And, the food hall is right across the street.
And that's on the Go Raleigh website?
I think there is a link, but you can definitely look it up on Google, like Go Raleigh Amenity Tracker, and it does come up. The first one.
RaleighNC.gov/bus map.
Okay, but is this for the public? And how's the public going to know that if it's just not, I would think they would want to see it on the Go Raleigh website. That would.
I'm not sure if it's linked from the Go Raleigh website or not. I can't speak to that. I'm sorry. We can certainly look at that.
I'm just thinking, if I'm a bus rider and I want to know the bus stops, I'm thinking I'm going to go to the Go Raleigh website.
Yeah, actually, I typed in Go Raleigh first. That was the first thing I did, because
And it didn't take.
that's where I'd go to check out the routes.
Which shows that we need an app, like I said before. We can get into that in the marketing committee.
Yeah.
Are you still?
Yeah, so this is the end. That was just, this item has been presented as information, but that is the end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
We love bus shelters, and the public always wants more bus shelters. We hear
Always.
that all the time. So publicizing this is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
And when you all get further along and get to the architectural renderings of the stops, can we see them then?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we can definitely share that over to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
All right, so we will, the Policy and Finance Committee did not meet this month. So we'll move this on over to the Marketing Committee.
Okay. So marketing, the first and foremost, we've had a couple of really dynamic meetings talking about our planned advertising campaign, marketing campaign that will begin around July 1st. And we've had, at the last meeting and this one, we talked and we reviewed survey input from this board and staff, analyzing different options for playing off Go Raleigh with the word go and other words that might be appealing to future potential riders. And just as a reminder, the whole point of this campaign is to help build ridership. So staff came up with some fun ideas of words that connect with go, and some of the top words that we looked at and agreed to were go experience and go work. And then we had discussion about what other words that maybe sort of meant the same thing, like does explore mean the same thing as experience, for example? Does go learn, what does that mean, et cetera. So we came up with some additional words and sent out a second survey that many of you I know have filled out. And as kind of what we're trying to do is give staff, and specifically Andrew, who's going to be helping develop the ads and images that we can use over the course of the year, that would vary depending on the words that we use, but we want to repeat the words. And again, it's to connect the idea of go, and that you can take the bus to have experiences, to get to work, et cetera. So we also talked about other things, other messages we're trying to convey. For example, that riding the bus can create some reduced stress and can create some ease in your life. Or riding the bus can help you save money. Riding the bus is an environmental step because most of our buses are green now. So that was why we sent out a second survey. And do we have the results of that yet? And it doesn't matter if we don't.
Yes, Go Play was selected.
Go play?
Yes.
You mean that was the top vote getter?
Yep.
Go Play. And the other ones, did they just not get any votes
Yeah.
other than me?
What?
Other than me voting for them?
Yeah, that was the top one by far.
Oh, that's really
So we were
interesting.
going to go with
Okay.
Go Experience, Work, and Go Play.
So we're going to, I guess, take that back and have further conversation with staff to kind of finalize that, because I wanted some other, if there's any other discussion or ideas here while we're at the meeting for those who didn't participate. Because one of the other questions that we talked about is how many words should we use? And should we just use 2 words connected with Go, or should we do a series of 3 words to elaborate a little bit more? So if there's any other input today, I'd love to hear it. I know Linda, LaTanya, you had some thoughts?
The only thing I suggested and I had thought about based on, because I came to your meeting, and I don't know if Andrea, I know Karen talked about adding 2 words. I don't know if I don't think I forwarded you the email, but I was saying maybe add, maybe Go Play, Go, I forgot what it was, but I'll look it up. Like Go Explore, Go Raleigh could be the slogan, and we can add on, change the words a little bit around for the next campaign or whatever it is, using those 3 words or something like that. But that's what I thought about.
And I agreed. I like the idea of, well, I just thought it might be kind of interesting if you had a certain, like if you did have 3 different words that you thought really resonated, you could have, let's just say, Go Play, Go Raleigh, and graphics could kind of show playing around the town.
That's exactly
And then
what
you could
we're
say
doing.
then the next week could be Go Experience, Go Raleigh. And I didn't know, since I'm not on the committee, if that's the way you guys had talked
You got
about
it exactly right. Yes. That's exactly it. That was the design idea. Thank
Well,
you.
I didn't need to be on the committee. But I do like, it's so funny. I was trying to pull up the words because I didn't vote for the ones that won. So clearly, I'm not an expert. But I did vote. I just didn't land on where the majority did. But I think it sounds great. I like saying, always following with Go Raleigh. And if you did do, I mean, if it was really a visible campaign and we still had radio.
Yeah, and the campaign is
spots.
yet to be laid out, but, and that's where the staff expertise comes in, but it's going to be multimedial. I mean, it'll be digital, it'll be radio, it'll be print.
Yeah, I was just going to offer
Social.
that I think the coordination between the radio, print, or the ads that are up on the bus to fill up space till someone pays for another ad or whatever, wherever they are, I think the critical piece is that consistency, so that if I'm driving in my car listening to the radio, stressed out about driving on 40, then I
Yes.
hear, Go Play. Remember, you can have a stress-free trip on Go Raleigh. Like, I think then I see the advertisements, it helps reinforce it. I think the most important thing is that cross media consistency.
Absolutely.
I like it. And just to piggyback on that, if we did, and I know you all have a whole campaign around this, but if we did do the whole cross-media piece, and maybe where on the news is visual, where they're showing signs of playing, but if we did a radio one where we said Go Play, maybe talking about different things that's going on in Raleigh at that time, they can take the bus to. If the next one is Go Work, you know, if it's a radio ad, it can talk about different new employers that's come in, or, you know what I'm saying, because since we don't have the space of visuals.
Or, yeah, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead,
Or a
Linda.
short tag that is, say, save money and chill while you're riding to your office, or, that could be the one about Go Work. And I like that idea of adding a little bit of a description for each time you're doing it.
Yeah.
Karen, I wanted to ask if we might just see what people think of that one that you were mentioning when
Go
you first
Chill?
came in. Yeah.
We, One of the first words that was suggested was "go easy," there was some discomfort about, well, what does that mean exactly? Does it have a negative connotation? But what we were trying to get at is that riding the bus can reduce stress in your life. It's not necessarily that hard, and we had a lot of conversation about why do people want to choose to ride the bus as opposed to having to ride the bus based on income or not having a vehicle, and it's interesting that, well, anyhow, I was throwing around some words with some people who ride the bus and people who don't ride the bus, and we came up with the notion, the word of chill. Like instead of go easy or go stress-free, maybe chill could be kind of a fun, playful word that connotes the notion that, when you get out of your car, you're going to be less stressed, and you're also going to enjoy yourself, which sort of goes a little bit with the word of play. Or go relax is another word that's related to that.
I know that in our first meeting, I wasn't in the one this month, but the one last month, we talked about go work, go play, go learn, and it looks like, and then we said go explore if we were picking a fourth one. It looks like those four are the ones that have risen to the top. My concern is that we keep kicking this around and not get a chance to really start putting some juice into the campaign.
We're going, this has only
Staff
been a
was
month.
asked to remove
I'm just saying what my
Go
concern is,
Learn.
that we keep kicking this around and we
Andrew?
won't put
I
juice to the
want-
campaign.
Toluipe, staff was asked to remove Go Learn.
Go work.
Go learn.
Go learn.
We started talking about, there was confusion among those of us who were at the meeting about what does that actually mean and how does that connect to riding the bus? And so we dropped it.
Okay. I don't care. I mean, we're going to keep spinning this until we get the words that we want on the authority, apparently, and not.
Well, this is only the second time we've talked about it. And choosing the right words is really important because we're going to spend $200,000.
That's fair.
So once we get it,
But it seems like we've picked the words already, and then we keep surveying to get new words. And I don't know if picking more words are going to help us narrow the words down.
But they have to be the right words, and it's only been a month. Anyhow, we're still,
Those are my 2 cents that we got to do that. That's my opinion.
Well, and I mean, I know that marketing campaigns have this development. You have to really churn it and talk to different constituencies and really kick it around before you can really land on exactly what the words mean and how you're going to use them. But the only reason I still want to say chill is because I think if we're kicking off in July, it's still summer for a lot of people. And I don't know, I'm not a marketing person, but I am thinking I'd like to envision I ride the bus to work. I'm going to ride the bus to Dick's and do yoga after work. Then I'm going to ride the bus home. I like the idea of go chill because that's in regular parlance these days, but it's also a connecting word for younger people. And it is summertime,
And,
some college students. I guess I'm just thinking, as you guys do this work and develop it, thinking about how the words can connect to particular groups of people that we know we want to reach,
Yeah.
or
I think that's really
If we're
important.
looking for connecting to people, why don't we send this out to community for them to pick the words?
well, because it's I guess we know that, because marketing,
Well, we talked about that, but
Expertise is
there
here.
was, the concern is how long, how much time would that take?
Well, it's only been a month.
I'd be
Somewhere
fine,
in
I'm
there.
fine with taking more time.
We did come up with the solution, and I'm going to defer to her to say it, but go ahead.
We had an enlightening conversation, I think, in the marketing committee. And we do thank you guys for also taking the survey again. So what we landed on in that conversation was we would begin with the words that we already agreed on, which was go experience. And then the other one was go work. So that does give at least staff the ability to go ahead and start drafting and coming up with those markups. And then we would survey. And now that we have completed the survey, I think we might be closer to going ahead and maybe closing that process off because we have the words now,
Well,
at
since
least.
the survey is us, and we're sitting at this table, and we're having the conversation today, and there's a couple of calls for including the word chill. I would love to know if that's a word that might be instead of play or in addition to play or connected with it.
I'm going to make an offer that, and chill means something very different to Gen Z than it means to us. And so I think that go play may be a better word to use for riding the bus. And I'll leave you guys to Urban Dictionary that when you get
It
home.
doesn't really get you to the notion of riding the bus reduces stress in your life.
I think that's true, but I think that likely that can be conveyed in the surrounding marketing stuff. But I mean, you guys, this is your expertise to knock around in committee, and I trust you guys, whichever words you think. I just wanted to offer the connotation for the chill.
That's part of the reason why I was saying spin it out, because we're kind of in a silo here, coming up with the words and going off of what you all gave us to go off of. But we work in this space, and even if we ride the bus sometimes or from time to time or majority of the time, we are not the people that we're talking to, I think, in this campaign necessarily.
I don't, yeah, I
Well,
don't.
if I could just get a moment.
Sorry about that.
We're not the people that we're talking to in this campaign necessarily. So I think us having an opportunity, if we're wanting the campaign to relate to the riders and we're spinning words, then having them give us input on what they see or what they think or what their personal usage of the bus is, I think would help.
So some of the words overlap, and some of the words actually mean the same thing. So the list was actually longer. The first list was actually longer, and some of them overlap. It was like they meant the same thing. They do the same thing. So if you say explore, experience, you can change the word. It all meant the same thing. So some of those words we knocked out. So part of the conversations was, okay, we know what the top two were, which we voted on, and some of the write-in words too. We included that in the second survey, and we asked, okay, what was not included? Let's vote on those. But we also said, regardless what the words are, it can be portrayed in the campaign and visually. So if we're talking about chill, it could be in the video that Andrew comes up. We don't know. So sometimes visually, words can be visually displayed. It doesn't have to be written out, and it can be conveyed in the message. I will tell you, a lot of people don't read signs, so it doesn't matter what we call this campaign. They're going to remember the image that they see or what they hear. So the more we focus on the words, we're going to keep going in the same circle over and over, which we did in the meeting. So that's why we said, considering July is about to be here, let's focus on those two words. Let's see what Andrew comes up with. We can say yay or nay, but we know he's going to do a good job, and then expand on the next campaign, because it can be in phases to cover all that.
Yeah, and then we don't necessarily have to go through picking all 4 words now.
Right.
To
That's
your
why we said,
point,
let's go with
We may
the
come
two.
up when the campaign goes and have a whole other list, because maybe by then we have had an opportunity to at least get feedback from ridership if we didn't send the survey out, but we get some form of engagement from the fact that they've seen it and say, oh, what about this or that? So that might work instead of us trying to build the whole plan.
Well, I would love to have a focus group of some sort, whether it's by electronic or in person, because I agree with you that we are very insular. And I had a little focus group with a college student and a middle-aged woman bus rider, and they all hated the word work. They thought it was terrible for this campaign. They're like, why would that make me want to ride the bus? And so what I'm saying is, and they're very removed. So I do think getting beyond our little insular group would be a good idea, but it would require more time.
Advice on how to survey non-riders, since that is who we're trying to target this at.
Exactly.
So that might be really hard because we're already trying to get non-riders on. So I don't think surveying riders is necessarily what you want.
Do we still, I know that we're not taking the contracts for allowing people to ride the bus, like what we were doing before that revenue piece. I know before we had corporate contracts, right, that let people ride the bus and we gave
Oh,
them.
go passes?
Right.
Yep.
No, not go passes, but the corporate contracts we've had, like say with Red Hat, and they give us funds so they
yeah,
keep.
that's the
Like,
go
even though
pass.
we're not taking advantage of that because we're not charging, is there a way that we can still take advantage of those partnerships?
We have those partnerships still, yes.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, can we take advantage of those partnerships
We
to
can
like
reach out.
get information from non-bus riders and even asking why they don't ride? It's an opportunity for us to build it that way.
I'd like to just say that I think we should not consider a survey period. A focus group is way better, because I think if you can pick a good variety of people for a focus group, and you can go in depth, why you don't, what would make you do it. But a survey takes too long, and they have the prerogative of not replying, period. It's just not, I just don't think we have the time to get what we're looking for from a survey. Now, I don't know, we don't have a budget for a focus group maybe, I don't know, but I think
Just feed them
that.
some snacks.
I
Put 'em
think
in a
we,
room.
you know, we could just do, have a lunch and through our partnerships, like through all the folks that we already have worked with, just say, you know, if there's someone who'd like to come, even if we had 10 people who are non-riders who we'd like to get to ride, to give us a little bit of feedback. I mean, just people I've talked to were very excited to share their views. They thought it was a lot of fun.
Maybe the retreat is a good opportunity.
No, I don't think there, because that's for everything. We don't want to go down this rabbit hole with the
Oh, no, I just
retreat.
mean kicking some questions around since we're trying to use it as an opportunity for engagement, if we get people to come that aren't staff or us.
Well, Andrew, why don't we talk about this after the meeting?
Okay.
And see if we can resolve.
Yeah, because we're going to need to look
next
at our
steps.
timeline based on what we gave you. If we can't move forward at this point, we've got to take some steps back, because design's going to take at least 2 months, and we wanted to roll out in July.
Okay,
So,
well, let's talk, we can talk tomorrow.
okay.
All right, well, thanks, everybody, for your input and for filling out the survey, and we will get there. I have full confidence. A couple other things we talked about at the marketing meeting is we had asked for some data on our social media metrics to see how we're doing on social media and if we're gaining traction. And the good news is we are. With with Facebook, on Instagram, and with Twitter, we have been increasing every year in terms of followers. At Facebook right now, I think we have about 4,000 followers, and Instagram about 2,000. I'd still love to see those numbers be higher. But the work that we have been doing to date has been making a difference, and I believe that particularly as we're rolling out the marketing campaign and we'll be continuing to gain traction. The other thing is, we heard from Het Patel about our Artist in Residence program with future BRT stations. As a reminder, we hired as a consultant Dare Coulter, who was a local artist who worked along New Bern Avenue with community members to kind of develop ideas around what kind of public art would reflect the community. We put out a call to artists who have been working in developing creations in glass, ceramic, and concrete for the future BRT stations along New Bern to incorporate public art, again, to enhance the experience of riders. And now we're putting out a call to artists for both the southern and the western corridors. And they will be we're going to be putting out a call for an artist in residence along those corridors to do a similar process. And so that's just gone out. So,
Yeah, and that does go out through the Arts Office and the Arts Commission.
yeah, that's right. We're partnering with Raleigh Arts on that, and they're really taking the lead on it. So I think that's it. Any questions?
I have a question on that one. Are we doing that kind of like the art explosion, where they send in all those different images and artists, and then we pick them, or is it just for the shelters, or this is just the artists and they're going to put their stuff on the shelter and decide which location shelters that the art goes on?
I think the first step is the artist in residence would, kind of survey community members to talk about what kind of images would reflect the community, where they're going, and then there's a separate call for artists to create, kind of to reflect what came out of that. And
That's correct. They're trying
Did I
to
have
pull
it right?
historical and cultural significance from the corridors so they can kind of create a theme for the artwork that would be created at each station.
Thank you, Karen.
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for that, for the marketing committee updates. And it looks like we have one last thing on the agenda, which is our addition for the VIA presentation with David.
All right, so I know that this was an ad. I'll ask everybody if you have 5 additional minutes. I'll try to keep it quick. I'll just roll through. But did want to daylight this as this will, well, Linda, we'll be having some future conversations at Finance and Policy with this item as we talk about things moving forward. This is like a 10,000-foot overview of this particular presentation. So please, bear with me and just remember this is not supposed to go down into detail. This is just an introduction. So Transit has or did solicit for technology as well as paratransit slash microtransit slash existing transit services, technology that can help us in that realm. That really encompasses everything that we do from paratransit to future microtransit to other opportunities to use technology. When we did that, we had a number of responses come back, and we did interviews and ranked, obviously, their proposals. And we ended up looking at a company named VIA. You can hit the next slide there, Andrea. VIA actually is not that old, but they already have a pretty large worldwide presence, and I don't need to dwell on that. That just shows that they're pretty much everywhere and doing a lot of different things. Next. But really, thinking about what does this software company or what can it do? Certainly it has software. So as a consumer, we can use just software and we can do all of the operations ourselves. Or we could use this particular vendor to do a number of things. And in their realm or in their world, when we talk about microtransit, we're really talking about non-traditional fixed route services. We're talking about areas that pull or usually generate 5 passengers per hour or less. So that's not what our fixed route services are for. Our fixed route services are really looking at between at a minimum of 7 to 10 passengers an hour usually. And we want to think about these other technologies for when we start hitting these really super suburban or even rural areas of Wake County that we may be called upon to serve in the future. So these are just some examples of things that they do. They provide all of the transit actually in the city of Wilson. City of Wilson did have a historical small urban bus system, and they turned it all into a microtransit system, which is a more of a point-to-point system, kind of like our paratransit or ADA services. They're providing services under the Wake Transit Plan in the town of Morrisville, as well as they do some transportation. Actually, I guess they provide software for Charlotte for their paratransit or some of their other demand response or feeder types of services. Next. So again, this is just to say that they have everything from rider booking tools. They have their own operations center if we wanted to tap into that. It also has a driver app. So as you are aware, we do approximately 1,300 taxi trips a day with our Go Raleigh access system. So right now, when a taxi company is dispatched or when we send out those trips, when we send out that trip, we don't know what happens to the trip, quite honestly. We know that the trip was dispatched, and if we get a call from the consumer or from the taxi company saying that they can't complete the trip, then that's how we understand that that trip is in trouble. That's not a very efficient or good way to run a system. So under the scenario, this would provide us with the technology and capability for us to deploy this software through anything that's mobilely connected, whether that's a tablet or a smartphone or anything else. And then we have the ability, just like traditional transportation network companies such as Uber, Lyft, et cetera, to track that vehicle and understand, for the first time for us, we get data metrics on those trips. Was the trip on time? Did the passenger get picked up when they requested? Did they get to their destination within a reasonable time? So we have all of that data on all of these trips, and we know exactly what the mileage was, and we know under a taxi rate structure what that cost would be. Next slide. So again, I talked about this. I'm not going to dwell on this one, but we can provide all of that service in-house with our existing, taxi services, which is certainly what we intend to do there. So we're not talking about displacing any existing vendors or anything. We're just talking about adding software in those instances to what we already do. For those other outlying areas, it may just really depend upon the area, whether we use our own vehicles to do that, or whether it might actually be more efficient because there's such small ridership in the area that a small sedan, which this company could provide, might be more efficient. We don't know that yet. We haven't developed those models yet, but those opportunities are just there. Next. Again, just a list of experience of places where they are currently working. Certainly, they continue to grow very rapidly. Next. And so this is going to be my last slide. So it really can be geared to support Go Raleigh's taxi model. And I'm not going to go through each one of those bullets, but I'm going to explain to you really quick what this particular software has for Go Raleigh that is an advantage over other types of software. So when we dispatch trips around 6 or 7 p.m., we push out 1,500 paratransit trips to approximately 36 to 37 providers. So all those trips go out to those providers. Those providers under our brokerage model can either accept or deny those trips. That's just the way it works. We don't hold contracts with them, so they can either accept it or not. Generally, they want the trips because those trips obviously are they can plan those that night. They can perform the trips the next day, and we pay them for completing those trips. But we don't assign those trips to their taxis. They do that themselves. We just send them a block of trips. This software has the ability for each one of those companies to put its vehicles through their own user login into the system, and they can assign those trips to their own vehicles at the correct times. But we get to see those trips when they're assigned and when they're performed. So again, we will be able to know, is the vehicle on the way? Is it not on the way? When we get a call from a client saying, where's my taxi? We actually will know that without having to make a phone call and trying to track down that particular taxi. So just because of the way our brokerage currently works, they have that unique ability to meet our business model currently. And when I say business model, I would say that translates in our particular instance very closely to what our consumers are used to and what they expect, because they like to choose their vendor, which we allow, and they like that performed as they schedule it, which we allow. This allows everything on their side to continue the same. Now, one additional step to that is when and if we return to fares, the system has a payment system where you can load your account, and the system automatically knows that you have $10 in the account, and it just deducts the appropriate fare each time you take a trip. So it knows that trip was completed. You can load that account through a phone call with a verification ID and things of that nature. You can load that phone call in person by visiting our offices at 222 West Target Street, or you can load that on your smartphone, or you can load that from your computer. All of those options will be available. And so no longer would someone need to actually take a paratransit. This is a great thing for me, so I'm really excited. No longer would you need to book a trip to buy tickets to take trips. That's so good. So anyway, I get excited. I've been working on this a long time. Technology finally got to the point that we've been asking for about a decade. That's the end of the presentation. We'll be coming back more to finance and policy to talk about the logistics of implementation and other things that will occur as we make this a reality. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
More like a comment or a suggestion. When we're collecting the data for the trips that people are taking, is it possible to also collect data on the category of their destination? The reason why I'm suggesting that is that we as the sort of the service also happen to be the land use decider. And so if we are looking at this data as a whole and we're starting to see, hey, wait a second, there's a lot of trips to medical, maybe we start planning our land use zoning around, hey, how do we make this easier for our seniors? Or if it's a lot of retail, we can figure that out.
Yeah. So we actually already, well, because of our existing software, we do have databases with origins and destinations. We just can't follow the trip while it's actually being taken. And we generally know the trip purpose, and we have heat maps with that currently. When we were looking for the location to place our new operations and maintenance facility for paratransit shared with Wake County, we ran heat maps and said, where have all of our trips beginning and ending? And all of the area around Wake Med and Sunnybrook Road between New Bern Avenue and Pool Road, just turned completely red with all of the the trips and the traffic in the area. So we know that's a great area. I can't say that we can't do better at, thinking about, what are work trips, what are medical trips and things of that nature, but that is certainly possible, most definitely.
I'll defer my questions till the next meeting.
All right. Well, thank you very much, David. Well, that is our last presentation and information for the day. Does anybody have any additional remarks or questions, comments? If all, okay, I thought you was raising your hand.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It was Hope, okay. All right, well, if all hearts and minds are clear, we'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned at 5:25. Thank you.